Hi, I'm Tori Norton. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to offer you a short Yin Yoga practice. Yin Yoga is a deep stretch form of yoga that encourages long holds and deep breaths. My classes always include a lot of breath work. This might be a little different than your vinyasa class or your restorative yoga class. It has a meditative component, as you'll find, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll start, as always, with a little bit of breath work. You might want to lift a block or something under the hips. Lift up through the crown of the head, settle the sitting bones down, and we'll begin. We begin with the breath. We draw the breath in through the nose, and we notice where it goes. We let it come down to the bottom of the lung. We let the breath fill like a balloon. And on our exhale, we release and we come back to center. And that's all we'll do here for a few moments. Inhale, expand. And exhale, come back to center. And go ahead and notice the length of your inhale. We're going to aim for about 5 to 6 seconds on that inhale. And balance it with an exhale of the same length. So a balanced breath is what we're after here. You want the air coming in through the nose, into the throat, moving into the chest and the ribs and down to the bottom of the belly. And then as you exhale, come right back to center, just let it drift. So establish that rhythm, that balanced breath. If you have a 4-second breath and a 4-second exhale, that's fine, but balance it. And once you've established this breath, let's take ourselves onto our hands and knees. We're going to take this breath with us into a few cow-cat tilts. So hands right underneath the shoulders and knees under the hips. Same straight spine we had when we were seated. We'll move into our first cow pose. As we inhale, melt the heart and lift the gaze forward. Hips also lift. On your exhale, synchronize your breath with the rounding of the back. Cat pose. As you transition back to inhale, cow pose, take your breath in. And as you move back to cat pose, exhale. And continue through a few more rounds of these cow-cat tilts in the spine, synchronizing your breath with your movement. And after you've established that breath, let's go ahead back to child's pose. So next time you come to tabletop pose, we're going to sink the hips back into our first yin posture. Knees move out a little bit to make some room for the chest and a straight spine. And walk the hands forward as you settle into your yin version of child's pose. So there are so many ways to adapt this. If your knees don't bend like this, maybe you bring a bolster in or a rolled towel and place it behind your knees. And that might allow your hips something to sit on and a beautiful deep stretch in the low back. You might also drop the head to the ground or a block and slide your hands around toward your heels. Arms straight out in front of you or hands back toward the heels. You choose your child's pose position. And whatever you choose, we're going to be here for a while. And you may get to a point where you can remove a prop. Maybe your head doesn't need that block. Maybe you settle into this to the point your knees no longer need the bolster behind them. Moving back to that breath we started with. Keep the breath steady, full inhale and a complete exhale.
We'll stay for a few minutes here. In a full practice, we might stay 3 minutes, opening the shoulders and back, balancing the breath and the nervous system. Let's move back up onto our hands and knees at this point. Tabletop pose. Let's move forward to a lunge pose. You could either stand on your shins and bring your left foot forward, or if you use down dog, you're welcome to slide the hands forward, lift the hips up, stretch for a moment here, but eventually bring that left foot forward and we'll set up for the pose. You might choose to have some blocks available for your hands. And you may start with that back knee up in the air. And that's fine, but we're going to drop the back knee down at some point here. So when you're ready, back knee down, back shin down. And the goal here is to bend that left knee forward and open the right hip flexor. The front of the right hip gets a good stretch here. And you can bring the blocks back a little bit, maybe lift the heart further back from that front knee. You could settle into your stretch by walking your right leg further back. And some of you might want to press that right shin down onto the ground to deepen your exposure to this pose here. But don't hold on too long with muscles. Let the muscles soften. And then the soft tissue will stretch. So we're here for a while, set up into a pose you can hold. Maybe your left forearm across that left knee. I'm going to maintain the right block for my hand. Land your eye gaze at one point. So just pick a spot, let your eyes or your drishti point land. And that breath we started with, same thing, bring it back in here. Full breath in and a full breath out. And we'll be here for a few more rounds of breath, opening that right hip, front of the right hip, psoas muscle. And the more you lift the chest back and away from that front knee, the deeper the stretch will be for your psoas muscle, that right hip. And let's transition our way back to child's pose. Bend that right knee and place the left knee down. Either exactly the same child's pose, or maybe this time you take a slightly different version of the child's pose, maybe knees together, offering lots of space to the low back, head supported. Hands could reach back to the heels this time, or maybe you keep them out in front of you. Palms up or palms down, you choose. But we're here for a full minute, so that might be 6 rounds of breath. And if your mind is telling you you're not doing anything, tune into the depth of your breath. Maybe you narrate your breath. You could say, I breathe in as you breathe in, and I breathe out as you breathe out. You could let the mind guide the breath. And that will force the mind and the body to work together and allow your nervous system to settle. Also, the 6 count inhale and 6 count exhale tends to balance the nervous system and leave you feeling in a pretty good mood. All right, runner's stretch, the second side. So again, move up to down dog or to your shins if you would like. This time we're bringing the right foot forward. Back knee stays down, or if you've stepped forward from your down dog, you'll be here and need to drop the back knee. Either way, put that left shin down on the mat, maybe a little pressure into that back shin as you move into your pose here. So the right knee hinges forward, weight on that right foot and on the blocks. You could cross your right arm across your right knee if you like and keep that left hand for the block. Find any pose you can set up in here and hold. So we'll stay here long enough for this left hip flexor to open up. And you can decide how far back you want to bring these blocks and how low or high you'd like to set them. But once you set up, land your eye gaze and focus on very little else except the breath moving to the left hip. And feel the coordination of that breath and the muscular stretch and the soft tissue opening. We move into the nuances of the breath as the stretch deepens. And this has a meditative quality. A yin practice will offer you a lot of the same benefits that a meditation practice will offer you. Keep the breath balanced. So if you only have a 4-second inhale and a 4-second exhale, that's fine. Just balance the breath. As we move out of this pose, bring yourself back to child's pose. Just 2 or 3 breaths here as a counter stretch. Can you breathe into the space behind your heart? Let's move on to our backs. When you're ready, turn this pose over onto your back. We'll stretch all the way out on the mat. We're going to finish this practice with a figure 4 stretch. So bend both knees, placing the feet on the ground. Fingertips can almost graze your heels. Right leg lifts, and we cross that right ankle over that left knee. And we'll use our hands to reach around either side of that left thigh. So that right hand goes through the middle of your figure 4. And we pull this left leg in toward us. And some of you might have your left foot just hovering in the air, and that's enough stretch for you, in which case you could just place a block underneath that and you'll get a nice hip stretch here. Many of us, however, will need to reach through that leg and pull that leg all the way in toward the chest before we begin to feel that stretch in the right hip. So find your stretch, soften your shoulders, relax your jaw, and let your breath be balanced as you stretch here into your figure 4. And in a longer practice, we might hold this pose for 2 minutes. In this shorter practice, we'll just take another couple breaths here. That's that round, full breath of equal length inhale and exhale. Let's go to the other side. Both feet down, pause for a moment. We'll switch sides, elevating that left leg, crossing the left ankle over the right knee. Hands frame that right thigh and pull the right leg in toward you. Figure 4, second side. So you've got the left hip stretching now. If you need more intensity, you could use your left hand to push that left knee away. At the same time, you pull your right knee in toward you. And same thing here, soften the breath, release any shoulder tension. Maybe your head rocks side to side. And by this point, the nervous system probably has the message to let go. And although this is a short yin practice, it gives you a sample of what a full practice might offer you. But if you just have a few moments, this is a great way to reset the body, reset the nervous system, and get rid of hip and low back pain. As you're ready to come out of this pose, find a Shavasana shape. And traditional Shavasana is extension of the legs all the way down the mat, palms out beside you, a little wider than the mat, about 45 degrees from the body, and the head relaxing on the mat. And you could stay here for 2 or 4 or 5 or 6 minutes. Again, since this is a short practice, I'm going to wind up here, but if you have the opportunity to stay in this posture a little longer, I highly recommend you do. Those who need to move on at this point, move your fingers and toes, draw the knees in toward the chest, and we'll bring ourselves back upright to a seated position. Ground the sitting bones, lengthen the back of the neck. We'll finish with the palms together at heart center and a bow. Namaste.